Castles of Burgundy is a dice-driven strategy game from designer Stefan Feld and Ravensburger Games.
In Castles of Burgundy, players compete to build the most prosperous estates in 15th century Burgundy. It plays with 2 to 4 players and takes about an hour and a half.
Players start Castles of Burgundy with a player board, 2 dice in their color, and 2 player tokens. 1 token goes at the start of the victory point track. Each player also gets 1 silverling and 2 random goods tiles, which are placed in the storage areas on their player board, and 1 dark green castle tile, which goes in the matching space in the middle of their estate map.
5 stacks of 5 face-down goods are placed in the game board's phase spaces. The silverlings, workers, remaining goods, and hexagonal estate tiles are sorted and placed beside the board. The first player is chosen, and their second player token goes at the top of a stack on the first space of the turn order track. They take the white die and receive 1 worker. The second player receives 2 workers, and so on. Then the game begins.
Castles of Burgundy plays in 5 phases, each of which consists of 5 rounds. At the start of the round, any remaining estate tiles are cleared off the board, and new estate tiles are added to the depots based on their color and the number of players. The blackback estate tiles are added to the middle of the board in the same way. Finally, the goods tiles for the current phase are placed face up in the 5 round spaces on the left of the board.
Each round begins with all players rolling their dice. The first player rolls the white die and takes the top goods tile from the round space and places it in the depot, which is appropriate to the number rolled on that white die. All of the other players can spend their dice rolls on actions. Actions include taking an estate, placing an estate, selling their goods, or buying workers.
A player can take 1 estate tile from the depot that matches their die roll, and they place it in one of the storage spaces at the bottom of their board. As another action, they can take one of the tiles in those storage spaces and add it to their estate, placing it in a space that matches the tile's color and that matches one of their die rolls. It also has to be adjacent to a space that already contains a tile.
Every tile placed will grant you a benefit. So blue ship tiles will allow you to move your token 1 space forward on the turn order track. It'll also let you claim all of the goods in one particular depot. Goods are stored according to color. You can only ever store 3 types of goods, so if there are goods in that depot that you can't store, then they are left behind.
Light green animal tiles give you victory points according to the number of animals on that tile, and they will also give you additional victory points for every animal of the same type that's in the larger light green region that the tile is being added to. Dark green castle tiles give you an extra action, which you don't have to use any dice for. Gray mines don't have an immediate effect, but at the end of every phase, they will give you 1 silverling.
Beige buildings have a number of one-time benefits, so they can grant you extra workers, extra silverlings, extra goods, victory points, or potentially a special action. You can only have 1 building of each type in each colored region. Yellow knowledge tiles might give you victory points at the end of the game, or they might give you an ongoing effect which will modify your actions.
If placing an estate tile completes a region of the same color, then the player who placed it immediately collects victory points according to the size of the region and the current phase of the game. The first player to cover all the spaces of 1 color on their board in tiles gets the bonus tile associated with that color and immediately scores its victory points. The second player to do this gets the smaller bonus tile and scores its points.
You can sell all of the goods of a single type which match one of your die rolls. To do this, you turn all of those tiles upside down and place them in the 4th space of your storage area. You gain 1 silverling and victory points for each good dependent on how many players there are in the game.
Now you can use any die result to buy 2 workers. And workers can be spent at any point in the game in order to increase or decrease a die result by 1. A player can also spend 2 silverlings once per turn in order to buy one of the black-backed estate tiles from the middle of the board. This does not cost an action.
Once all players have taken their actions, the next round begins. The game ends after 5 phases. At the end of the game, any unspent workers, silverlings, or goods can be cashed in for victory points. You'll get victory points from any of those knowledge tiles, and the player who has the highest score is the winner.
I think Castles of Burgundy is a really nice gateway game to some of the more complex traditional strategy games that are out there. It does a really nice job of introducing a variety of mechanics, whether it's engine building using the knowledge tiles and the animal tiles, whether it's a race to a particular target, like with the bonus tiles, interaction with your opponents if somebody takes the tiles that you want, as well as that little bit of randomness with the dice and the action selection element. It's really got sort of bite-sized pieces of a whole bunch of different strategies that work well together and provide a great introduction. I also really want to single out the dice here because not only are they interesting and they add a little bit of randomness that might help level the game for newer players, but they're also a really interesting aid for younger players or ones that are new to the game and new to strategy games in general, in that because your die rolls constrain what actions you can choose, they also let you limit the amount of information you're processing on any given turn, which can cut down a little bit on analysis paralysis and make the whole process just easier and more accessible to new players, which is a real strength of this game. My one complaint, or my one big complaint, is about the visual design. It's actually a very pretty game. There's a lovely pastel drawing on the back of the main board. The tiles have nice colors, but there's not enough contrast and there's not enough visual distinction. The boards are used to convey a whole bunch of visual information through iconography and through a fairly sensible layout, but because you've got sort of a blurry pastel background with blurry pastel drawings and iconography on top, it can actually be really hard to pick out what you're doing, and I find that stuff starts to blend together and the whole thing actually gets very difficult to navigate, which is unfortunate.
So another con to Castles of Burgundy is it can feel a little bit solitary when you're playing it. The interaction between the players is actually quite limited. There isn't really all that much that you're going to be doing with the other players at the table. Once you settle on your strategy, there isn't much that they're going to be able to do to really change that, change your ideas, get in your way, that kind of thing. And that can be a turnoff for some players. However, on the positive side, Castles of Burgundy is very easy and quick to learn. There's not going to be very much downtime between your turns, which is really nice. The simplification of the rule set with the dice, like Kaja was saying, means that you're really going to, your choices are limited. So you're going to be able to move along quite quickly, and you're not going to be waiting around, and it's a short play time, which is nice. Also, this game has quite a bit of replayability. There's a lot of different ways you can win, a lot of different paths to victory. So every time you play this game, you're going to be able to try something new, modify your strategy a bit. It's not going to be sort of the cookie cutter, same way you win every time kind of game. Also, once you get tired of sort of playing with the personal game board that you've been playing with, you can switch over to the other ones. There are some modifications in the maps. It's going to keep things interesting. It's going to keep this game sort of at the front of your gaming shelf for a little bit longer.